So, here's agendas.
Okay.
Nobody in the audience
I got
tonight? You got one?
Yep.
Okay, Carol, you got? Okay, here you go. And I emailed it to you, didn't I?
I didn't get it if you did.
I did. But I'll try to email it to you again so you have it electronically, but I did. You know,
Any additions?
Are we starting?
We should start.
yeah, we're going to, what? What were you asking? Let me just,
The only addition the chief asked is if you could put the lieutenant's position on the agenda.
it's under personnel.
Oh, okay, he didn't know, so that, all right, that answers that, thank you.
Yes. And there was something at the last minute that I got. What was it that I got at the last minute that I said that we could just add? I think it was the contract, I think Jeff should have, let me see if I have it in here. The contract for the, I think we could do it tonight, we don't have to. The contract for the traffic services for Mohawk, that, remember we were going to redo the contract? And since it is police services, we could probably add that. Yeah,
Okay.
So,
Do we want to, let the camera
okay,
start rolling?
so
Yeah.
why don't you get started?
All right, so, good to go.
Wait till we're on TV.
All right, so,
Okay, do I have a motion to open the meeting?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Can we all stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have those microphones. So we don't have our big boom mics. So can you hear us? You can hear us? Okay, great. Okay, so I'd like to add to the agenda just one thing, which is the contract for traffic control services for Mohawk Mountain House in regards to the wine festival. And when Jeff
That
gets...
was revised.
It was revised
Okay.
according to what we talked about at the meeting, and I think this is it, and Jeff was handling it. So, and I didn't put on minutes to approve the minutes, and I actually haven't looked at them. So I can either put them on if you've all read them, or we can do them at the next meeting and approve both.
Let's do them at the
Did you
next
read
meeting
that?
when everybody's here.
Okay, so nobody, okay, so we'll approve them at the next meeting. Is that okay with you?
I'm sure
Okay.
they're great.
They look pretty comprehensive, so, they look pretty good. So, okay, so we're gonna add on the agenda the Mohawk contract for police services. Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay, so we'd like to welcome Detective Sergeant Lucchese, who's here tonight, and the chief will be joining us in a little bit. But, so, do you want to do the new hires and stuff, or do you want to, like, maybe wait and we'll start with the recap, since that's really...
If you want, we can start with the monthly report and then...
Oh, I forgot, you're right. Why don't we do that?
Okay.
Sure.
So this is actually the monthly report for March, and in it, there were 2 letters of commendation. One was from the college president, and he was thanking us for our participation in the 15th anniversary of the New Falls Tavern Owners Agreement. Chief Snyder was present, so he just wanted to thank us for participating in that. And the other was actually a compliment form that was filled out. It was filled out by an individual who resides in Walk Hill and wanted to compliment 2 of our officers, in particular Gerald Marlette and Roy Schneider, for assisting him time to time, and just thanking them for being the officers that they are.
And you only have those 2, because I have one, did you guys get, I got one from Chief David Dugatkin, who, so I'll give it to you.
Is that from March, or would that be more recent?
April 22nd,
Okay. The chief, I think, does have that, and that'll be included in,
next month?
yes, next month.
Okay, so you don't want me to steal your thunder?
No, you can go for it, though. I'm all good with that.
Okay, so I'll steal your thunder. So we did get a thing from David Dugatkin, Chief Snyder. Please extend my sincere appreciation for your members who assisted us on the recent arrest of Marquis Bernard, who is charged with criminal possession of a weapon, along with other charges while on SUNY property. Your department's officers named above were instrumental in a successful and timely arrest of the defendant. As you are all aware, we have a zero tolerance policy on weapons, and knowing that we can rely on your department for assistance only confirms the professional and cordial relationship our two departments have. Sincerely, Chief David Dugatkin, SUNY University Police. So,
Very good.
we'll add that to the commendations.
Did we invite Chief Dugatkin?
We did,
Okay.
and he's not joining us.
Okay.
I do have a email that I can read about why he's not, and we can coordinate it, but he didn't believe he was really the appropriate person per se, and that it might be some staff from the college who's really the more appropriate people to talk to. And so what we'll do is we'll sort of work on this a little bit to see who we want from the college, and then maybe we'll have a bigger meeting next time with, our force and the police, the SUNY police, but,
I spoke with Chief Dugatkin,
Yeah.
and he said it was the college, but also some people from state. He knew that you had a lot of questions regarding
Right.
the UPD contract, and so he was trying to actually coordinate with state representatives to come down and answer the questions you had as far
Okay.
as the contractual obligations.
right.
Okay.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll try to coordinate with all the, the bigger parties from the state to the county, the state, the college, our officers, their officers, and we'll just try to get this conversation going. So anyway, back to you.
Nope. There was one defensive action report that was filed in March, and it was for the arrest of Colin Lambert, who was subsequently charged with the armed robbery at the Chase Bank in April of last year. Mr. Lambert was taken into custody by members of our agency, Saugerties Police Department, New York State Police, and Herkimer Police Department up in Hunter, New York. And this defensive action report is in regards to that. I don't know if you have any questions about it.
No
You guys
question.
have a copy of it? Okay.
Mhm.
And so that was the only defensive action report that was filed.
Okay.
And other than that, I didn't know if you had any other questions regarding any other information in the monthly report.
Anybody have any questions?
It's very comprehensive.
Okay, great. So maybe what we will do next is,
Let's do the contract.
what?
Let's do the contract.
Well, we could do the contract. Jeff, so we have updated, if you remember, guys, that at the town board meeting, we had the contract for the wine festival at Mohawk Mountain House, and we had to change a couple of things to make it specific to Mohawk Mountain House and the wine festival. Councilman Logan handled it for us and took care of it with the police department and stuff, so everything is copacetic.
Yeah, all the
Kevin just
changes have
looked
been
at it.
incorporated.
All the changes that we would ask were incorporated. Jeff looked through it, he approved it,
Joe approved it, more important.
Joe approved it. More importantly,
We have
Kevin
it.
just looked at it and said it has all
We
the...
have somebody signing it that has authority.
Yes. So, is there any questions or anything anybody want to ask, or can I have a motion?
Did you look at it,
You're good with the rate,
Rob?
right?
Did you get a chance to look at
I
it?
have not.
Okay, I didn't know
I'm
we
not
want.
sure, maybe the chief has.
Well, I
You know,
think so.
it's actually one that goes back. Luckily, the nice thing of using Joe Moriello for the last 47 years as our town attorney,
Who pointed out that he wasn't the attorney during temperance, but that's...
but besides that, he was, is that we actually used to do protection. I don't know, Rob, were they doing it when you were there ever? Mohawk actually used to use the New Paltz Police for protection, traffic control
Traffic
in the
control,
past.
yeah.
So up at the
They used them
gatehouse.
when
Do you
I was
remember that?
supervisor first.
Okay.
When I was a supervisor first, they used them all the time.
Okay, and that's where that
Yeah.
contract is
Yeah.
from. So long as it all worked out back then, which to Joe's remembrance, it always did. So if it worked out, I mean, if you were doing it back
Works
then,
out for you guys, I guess.
if it works for
Did you take the
you.
word Studley out?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, no, this is,
Studley.
yes. No, this is
Yeah.
a completely different contract.
Yeah, this is...
It's-
For reference to Studley's goal.
This is a completely different
No, no,
It's
this is-
completely different than what I initially read.
This is a
Not
revised... No, no,
completely,
no.
but it speaks just, yes.
It's a revised contract.
It's only
Revised
completely
contract.
different because the changes were made.
Right.
Ah.
It's still pretty much the same, if you want to take a quick look at it.
It's the one that we used to use with Mohawk Mountain House in the past.
So why don't we, while
So it's
Dean
not
is
completely
looking at that, we can put that aside for a second,
said I
because we were waiting for you to come down, because I wanted to be,
Thank
you to be
you.
here for the, Sergeant Detective Lucchese to give us a update on the recap of the homicide investigation, so I thought it was
Oh,
important
thank
that
you.
we were all here to sort of hear. So we were doing some things, waiting.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
No, I'm
Okay, so
good.
why don't we, why don't we do that, and then we can get into some more of the nitty-gritty.
Okay. As far as the homicide goes, Mr. Bashim Bennett has been arrested and charged with one count of murder in the second degree. 2 counts of assault in the first degree. He was indicted by a grand jury and arraigned by Judge Williams. We are continuing to work on the investigation. We basically, to start from the beginning, Sunday morning, April 20th, one of our road sergeants was in the area of Murphy's Bar. For a disturbance, soon learned that 2 individuals had been shot inside the bar and called for assistance. Members of the New York State Police, the Sheriff's Department, the SUNY New Paltz Police Department, and even some other outside members, agencies. I think the town of Ulster was actually there as well. Responded to assist with the immediate scene. I was called, the chief was called, and our 2 detectives also responded, and our investigation was initiated. And we then set up I guess you want to call it a command post, if you will, for a better word, at the station, and began to work leads on the investigation. The New York State Police Forensic Identification Unit processed the crime scene itself, collected any evidence that they deemed worthy, while investigators followed up on a number of leads. I think at this point we have followed up on over 100 different leads, and we still have more to do, even though an arrest has been made. Now at this point the matter is turned over to the DA's office, and Mr. Holly Carnwright is going to be prosecuting the case himself, and we're working with his office at this point. I don't know if you have any specific questions that I can answer.
I have some questions, but I think they're related to the crime itself, and obviously those things are probably confidential. It's a certain level, so I'm fine for now.
Go ahead.
No, I think the only question I had, and it's bigger on the whole piece, is I think we were obviously the coverage of police down there, like they're just having the road patrol and the walking patrol played a pretty good role in this, it appears.
I mean, we had members of our agency in the immediate area. We had 2 officers on foot patrol at the time. The sergeant was in his vehicle, and there were other officers, pretty close proximity to downtown as well that all responded, as well as SUNY responded immediately. The sheriffs and the state did as well. So we had a pretty good presence, within a short amount of time. The crime scene was immediately secured, and that allowed us to do the things that we needed to do to follow up on, to start the investigation part of it.
Now, have you guys started to do, and I might be using the wrong phrase, have you started to do a post-mortem on your response and all that yet, or?
Not yet. To some extent, we've looked at some things, but not in a whole sense, because we're actually still following up on a number of leads.
I think I'm kind of speaking more holistically on, like, how you guys were contacted, how the scene was handled, all of that.
We've looked at some of that immediate response, and I think, we're very happy with the way things went. And we had an immediate, we were there immediately, and we had assistance that arrived very shortly afterwards. So, we were able to locate witnesses, secure a crime scene, and then move forward from there. And we did that in a really short period of time. And then the investigation unfolded from there. So I think, that part of it, I think very happy with the way that happened, and the way, the cooperative effort. I mean, an arrest would not have been made if it wasn't for the cooperation of all those agencies, and in addition to the agencies I named, the City of Poughkeepsie Police Department. I mean, they were invaluable. Once we knew where the victim was from and parties that were potentially involved, we reached out for them, and they were an invaluable resource for us in making this arrest.
I do know I talked with Holly Conrad today, and he was very, very, very complimentary to you, specifically in terms of the handling of this case. He said that, basically here it was like dark, there was strobe lights going off, somebody pulled a gun, shot, it was all over, people started running, and that, the fact that you could pull it all together and then within 3 days have an arrest, he said was really remarkable, and he was really, really singing everybody's praises.
We had a lot of people working, and I appreciate that. He's biased towards us. I think
Yes,
he
likes you an awful lot.
He does like us. But it really was. I mean, it was a tremendous effort by a lot of investigators. we had anywhere from 10 to 15 investigators working on this, from the get-go, and really did not stop. And I think that was the effort, plus some breaks that we caught, resulted in an arrest.
Well, one of the things that the chief had said to me too, while he was calling me to keep me abreast of what was going on, that also, because I guess you had such good leads, that, in order to not let anything go by the wayside, that's why you guys were just continually working like round the clock, because, you had so many good leads that you had to just keep following all these leads, and so everything just kept breaking in a way that,
Yeah. I mean, that's really, and again, my experience with homicide investigation is, pretty limited.
Thank God.
We had a few, thank goodness. But the sense of it is that you want to do that. You don't stop. You have to keep moving, and because time is of the essence, and evidence can be destroyed. And we're not just talking about physical evidence, but you're talking about, in this case, technological. Technology plays an important piece of evidence. So those are all things you really want to make sure you're working on.
Well, great, and thank you
Yeah.
very, very much. Do you know much about the thing that happened on the campus with the person who had pulled a gun on 2 different people?
I know some of it. In that particular case, what I know is that there was, to my knowledge, there was a party at a house that is just off the campus. The defendant in this case was involved in some sort of physical altercation with some individuals at that party, left, and then came back with the gun. And it's my understanding that the suspect attempted to shoot 2 individuals. The first individual he approached pointed the gun, fired, had to rack the gun a couple times, and was tried to fire several times. That person was located on the campus and then taken into custody.
I think it was just lucky that the gun didn't go off, or do you think he knew that the gun didn't really work?
I'd be speculating.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not say.
Yeah, okay.
Was alcohol involved?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
Were you satisfied with the response from both SUNY and how they contacted the New Paltz Police Department and other agencies? And
I don't know who else they contacted. They did contact us. We were aware of what was going on.
Good.
I received a phone call at home from the on-duty supervisor at that point in time, and one of our detectives went out because they were requesting assistance. So Detective Sutton did respond out to the campus to assist with them, and then we subsequently assisted with some things that needed to be done prior to the preliminary hearing. Sergeant Butler test firing the weapon and testifying actually at the preliminary hearing in regards to that. So they did contact us.
Good.
And we have a good two-way communication with them.
good.
Well, great, thank you. So now back to the nitty-gritty.
Got it.
Okay, so, are you okay with the contract, Jean? Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the contract as amended?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried, okay. So, we did the recap.
And Rob, you guys have a list of who gets to do this, or you know how that works? Who gets chosen?
What we normally do with things like that is we base it on seniority. We'll probably work off of the list where we left off with our sporting events.
No, there is a process though. Okay, that's it.
There's
Nope.
a list, a rotating seniority list.
I say thank you to sign that. Perfect. Yes. Good. No. Okay. As long as you have a
But-
process.
Okay.
And then we'll forward that back up to Mohawk.
And
then
today is May
Okay.
5th, right, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2014, and by the Board of Directors in Gun.
And we send that back up to
Right,
Page 1 dated,
right?
page 1.
page 1, David.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
David,
this agreement is
yeah.
made on,
And actually, if Rob
fifth
wants to take that back to
day
Teresa,
of-
she can forward that back up to Mohawk, and then send
Okay.
that back over to Carol.
okay, well, what
So-
I'll do is,
Does
make
the
a
original
co-
go to Carol or to Mohawk?
well, what we usually try to do is,
We need that signature, we want them to,
right, fill this in.
Yep.
We usually try to give the original back to Rosanna, so she has all the original signed copies. But what I'll do is I'll make a copy of this before we leave, so, and I'll give you the original to get to them, for them to fill in to get back, but I'll also make, a couple of copies so we all have, okay? Okay, so, would you want to talk about the 2014 COPS hiring program?
Yes. Just making a little note so I know what
Okay.
what you want me to do with that.
Right. And I just realized what was left off of this contract is the update on the, oh no, the server issue. It's right there. Okay. I was waiting for you.
Oh, okay, no.
But, okay, so we'll do the 2014 COPS hiring program, and then we can, I did make copies of this, which is, I don't know if it's more, it's the last thing that was sent by, yeah, so I have all this stuff, you know, all the emails that went back and forth, and then this was the last thing.
Yep.
So I'll let you,
Let me take a look.
okay, yeah. Okay, so 2014 COPS hiring program.
The chief wanted me to discuss the COPS hiring program. The Department of Justice is making available funds for 2014 for the COPS. It's the traditional COPS hiring program where the Department of Justice will provide up to 75% of the approved entry-level salaries and fringe benefits for a 36-month period. And that the municipality has to provide a minimum of 25%, and the maximum federal share is $125,000 per officer, per position. Based upon the formula they have in place here, we'd be eligible for one officer if we received an award. The application and the process itself is somewhat cumbersome, so prior to even beginning this, we wanted to make sure that we had the approval of the commission and as the board, or the board as the commission, excuse me, in order to move forward from here. And with the understanding that that officer would be paid by the federal government, the majority of their salary and benefits for 36 months, but then the town would have to pick it up
Right.
At that point in time.
And as I understand it, it's not to, can you use it to replace a position that you already sort of have and you're hiring somebody new, or you have to add extra police to the force?
It has to be for, actually, I went through and I highlighted the frequently asked questions just to make sure that purpose. It's my understanding that the funding that cannot, it can be used for, to replace anything that has been cut, but it can't be, or to add. As far as the layoffs go, if it was somebody that was laid off, they would have to be what the COP grant was for, not for somebody else on top of that. There are really no restrictions with it, as far as even if we wanted to deploy it as an SRO or of that nature. Yeah, no, you can use it for any type of.
Do you know in other communities if the school district pays for the SRO?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure which communities right now have even an SRO.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Walkill is the only one that I'm aware of, and I don't know if I think there's a town of Schmalman officer was assigned to Walkill High School, but I'm not sure it was paid for by the school district or by the town.
Is this officer position, is this something that we pay for and the federal government reimburses us? Is that how it works?
If you're given, the way it reads here is that they would pony up 75% of the salary and
What Dan is
benefits.
asking is if it's reimbursement. In other words, you lay out the expense, they reimburse you, or do you get the grant up front to pay for the officer?
No, to my knowledge, it's not reimbursed for it. It's just that you pay for that portion, and they will give you the check. for that.
So Dan, we had looked at these in the past, and the difficulty was it was mandating that you increase your police head count.
Well,
So-
you're making a mandatory commitment
Yes,
for that body.
because what happens is
Right.
after the end
So I
of,
have a question.
at the end of the
Is there
grant.
a deadline for that application?
Yes, there are, and that's why we wanted to put this in. I believe the deadline is going to be, bear with me.
but Dan, I was looking that up, it's, then to Gene's point too, then you're committed to X period. Usually, like, I think the last time these came out, at top of my head, it was like a 5-year commitment afterwards. So they pay for 3, then you need to either do 3 or 5.
And then the benefits.
That's well all part of the dollar.
That's a part.
That's
Well, they pay
Up
for it
to a
all up
max.
front.
Up
but
to a
then
max.
But then after that, you know.
Yeah,
May,
we
June,
assume the
June,
cost.
July is the actual deadline.
Does it say when the award,
I have it up
does
here.
it say when the award date is?
No, it doesn't say when the award date would be. The
Beca-
application filing deadline, I believe, is in June.
I would have to look more at it, because this one seems to
Yeah.
differ a little bit, and the reason being is it didn't used to allow any type of backfill. So if your police head count, so right now we're going to 21, for example.
Right.
Line officers. It used to be you had to increase your actual numbers.
This is exactly that, you would have to do
Right.
that, unless
Well,
you had, for example.
If someone retires now, though, we could use this to backfill a retiree.
Yes.
If it's a retiree, I don't believe so, because your line would be 21. The idea is that, the only way would be is if it was a layoff. I think a retirement or an attrition like that, that wouldn't be covered underneath here in what I've read. But you would have to increase, and again, the idea is that you
Well-
also have to hold on to, you're making a commitment that after that 36-month expires, that the municipality encompasses the full.
Right.
And retain.
I mean, it technically.
Yeah, it's a retain, I think it's like
Can
I
I
mean-
look
5
it
years.
up in my
Retain.
mailbox when you get a chance?
Yep.
Thank you.
problem.
It's like we had 22, we went down to 21, so if we wanted to go back to 22, you do it,
Correct.
you do it. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic though, because with the cap now, you know, it's like,
It's very-
you know, you're paying for that for a couple of years. It's not in your budget technically, because it's, you know,
Well,
if
it's
the
small
revenue.
enough that you can probably manage.
It's not that small, once you add in all the benefits and.
No,
all
I mean,
that-
but in the first 3 years, it's more manageable
Oh,
than what's
yeah.
gonna happen
You're-
when it comes to the
And
force.
it's, you're like,
Is
you're
that
committing a
where
future
you're
board
going?
too,
Yeah,
and then
but-
taking on.
you're encumbering a future board
No,
for, I
no,
believe,
you don't.
But no, but what I'm saying is,
5
the
years,
first
I
3
believe it is.
years, you're only paying that 25%.
Right.
You're saying the
Okay,
same thing.
so then, yeah, and then by the fourth year, whatever board is sitting here, they've got to,
They got a whole body.
they have a whole body, health
And-
insurance,
Are
all
you-
that,
are you allowed
under a
to-
cap.
And this is just a
And a
theoretical
cap,
discussion.
And a cap,
right.
right.
But the whole idea of not being able to commit future boards, then are you not committing a future board to having to continue to
Well-
hire?
Yes, you
a-
are.
yes,
So
and.
How is that allowed?
No, well, yes and or no. So, for example, it's no different than, and Kevin will hopefully have an opinion, because once you have an officer 3 years, you're not going to be able to get rid of him very easily through civil service. So so we're kind of embodied ourselves. So we couldn't, so for example, for us to go through mass layoffs in the town would be very difficult, because you have to go through civil service to do this.
Yeah.
So same thing, now that you've hired this person, once they're in 3 years, they're long past any probation period, they're long past anything that you could terminate them for.
Okay, I see.
So regardless, they're going to be a member of our force. The thing is though, is it now sounds like this is again is a grant though, to increase our police
Sure.
force, our head by one, which cost us, it's the extended cost, it's the marathon cost, not the sprint cost. The federal government wants to cover the
But it
sprint.
all depends on how the grant reads.
Yeah, I do need to read this
Grant-
grant
I'd
too.
love to see
If
a
the
copy of
grant
Yeah, we'll get
reads
copies.
Yeah.
that you have to retain, that
You-
there must be retention,
have to
then you have to retain.
You must retain, but for at least a 12-month period of time. So you
That's
have
it?
Okay, so now you're talking
So you're
about
committing for
48
4 years.
months.
Committing, yep.
But then in
Yeah,
4
see.
years, you're now into civil service too, so you can't just dismiss someone.
Well,
You
no,
know,
the
it's got the layoff.
difference,
You
the
just got the-
difference I see is that if a grant expires, and then that final year, you have a commitment to the grant, and then the grant, and your commitment to the grant is expired. I need to read it.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, no, I need to read it.
And you may be able to not
So are we
be
taking
committed for
action?
20 years.
on
No,
this?
and I'd like to hear our labor attorney's opinion on that too, because you have an interesting point, say, Gene. It is very interesting.
Just to, yes, I know, because you could say, absolutely.
Because then
Just
you
go
can put in
to,
the contract.
Dan, I mean, technically, in a way, though, if you think about it, if we do a 3-year contract,
Mhm.
you know, with the police, you know, we do a 3-year contract with UPSU or the Teamsters or whatever, or a 5-year contract, technically, we are committing future boards to that contract.
Mhm.
So, in some ways, it's not like there aren't ways that you can
Mhm.
bind
Yeah, I
future
understand.
boards.
Legitimately
Right,
bind.
exactly,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But I mean, the COPS grant was started this COPS grant was started a number of years ago as a way to.
Mid-90s.
Yeah, and I think I was supervised the first time when they implemented this. And, you know, a lot of it was because a lot of, like, places like Newburgh and other places were really hurting and they didn't have the wherewithal
Mhm.
to basically hire the kind of police that they needed to do. So this was a way for the federal government to sort of basically get cops on the streets without burdening, you know, the local community in a sense. And, but now with the cap, it's a different environment. But, you know, so what we'll do is make copies, we'll read it. And even though, we'll see the due date, if we should choose to want to do it, we have a board meeting coming up, so we can act at a board meeting to authorize. So this way we could look at it, we don't have to wait a whole month, you know, for us to figure out what we're gonna do. We could do
Yeah.
it next week.
That sounds good.
So, okay, so that's that with the comms grant, so we'll make copies of that too before you leave. And so, can you also talk about the new hirees, the part-time officers, the dispatchers, and, or do you want Jeff to do the server?
We can do the new hires.
Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll go to the server.
Let's see. We have interviewed several candidates for both part-time police officer and part-time dispatcher positions. At this point, we've moved forward with the background investigation on 2 candidates for part-time police officer. The chief and I are actually going to be meeting later this week to make some final decisions on the remaining candidates for police officer and dispatchers. Very happy with all of the interviewees, and in particular the 2 that we saw that we wanted to jump on and move forward with. One of the issues that we're working on here is to try to get the background investigations done as quickly as possible, because some of these applicants only have phase 1 of the police academy. So we want to complete their background investigation as soon as possible so that they're ready and eligible to attend phase 2 of the academy, which begins in, I think, July 9th or 10th. So, and same thing with the part-time dispatchers. Again, several candidates, the chief and I'll be meeting to make final decisions, and then making phone calls from there, so we can start field training in that area.
Are any of these local, or did you try to find any local? Good.
Well, yes, I mean, there are a couple local with dispatch, and I believe one was like New Paltz with the police officers, but
Oh, good.
that was it.
Well, thank you. No,
Mhm.
that's,
Now, does anybody want to see, the officers that they're looking to do, like any of the information, see it before?
I would.
I know one of the officers, or one of the prospective ones,
Do
so
you?
I'd rather not,
Okay,
but that's
Okay.
just me.
You really
So-
should abstain.
That's why I said I'd rather
You
not.
should recuse yourself.
I just publicly disclosed that.
okay. So it comes time to accept the recommendations, well, remember. Okay, so if, the people that you're looking to move forward, if you could, have the chief get the information, who's here right now, formally, dressed up.
I know,
Um,
like
I mean, if
So-
you'd like, we could discuss some of that in the executive session.
Okay,
I mean, those are
that would be-
questions
okay,
handled, you know.
Okay, so why don't we do that? Okay, so we're done with that.
Chief?
And so, Chief, you pretty much just got here at the very end, where we're just going to talk about the server.
Timed perfect. Yeah.
Time for
Timed
break.
perfectly. So we're going to talk about the server. And so the board knows, and the public should know, that there's, well, why don't you tell everybody what happened with the server?
Oh, gosh, well, the server did exactly what we anticipated, that it was on its way out, and we were hoping it would have a little bit more legs, a little bit left, but unfortunately it didn't happen that way. So it did crash, and it's been quite the experience trying to do everything on paper again like we used to do back when I first started. May has done a phenomenal job, as you guys all know. She's been working tirelessly, just trying to get us up and running again. She put a temporary server in there so we can get back up and running, because waiting to next week to get the other server in, we would have been so far backlogged, it just would have been terrible, even with giving reports out to the public. So we're up and running. It's kind of getting us through until the regular server comes in. I know that the board suggested a lease program. First, it wasn't looking too good because of the fact that we were already behind the 8 ball with the computer crashing, but it looks like Dell came through. May worked really hard with getting them to agree with getting us the equipment and allowing us to follow up with a lease program. I believe the first lease thing came through, and as we discussed, we agreed that we'd try to take that money out of our seized account this year, which is just under $4,000. We can get through on that based on saying that because of the extra things that were being included in this, such as the switches that we wanted to do. I can't really talk exactly what that means, but listening to May and talking about how we're talking about planning ahead for 6 to 10 years on this. We're not looking to just patch it for 2 years. So doing all this, so we were able to justify that to be out of the C's account for this year. This way we don't have to go into contingency, and then next year we'll include it in the budget.
So, just so everybody knows, because it was, over a, like close to a 20-something thousand dollar cost,
Correct.
and so, we did talk about the leasing, they did come up with a lease plan. The original was gonna be 4.4%, but Jeff, as a good negotiator, said, can't you do better? And they came back with 3.9%. So just by Jeff asking the question, we went from 4.4% to 3.9%. So that was terrific. And then instead of having to come up with taking $25,000 out of contingency.
Or seized.
Or the seized asset, we were able to, get the lease program, which then came out to like $3,500, a year, for the 5 years. The difference, in terms of the $1,000 in interest was insignificant relative to taking that money out of the account. We have over $28,000 in seized assets, and that's after the $6,000 we took out for the computers in the car. So, and then we got the $6,000 from the urgent. So we're still at 28. So by taking up $3,000, we're still like at 25, which is, a healthy amount of money for what we need to do in the future. This takes the burden off of the taxpayers, and we were able to solve this problem that we thought was going to be a $30,000 problem, and now it's a $3,000 seized asset expenditure, and you have a brand new server that will have more room, more growth, more whatever. So
What's the useful life of this system?
I know, Joe, you're very helpful. You're very hopeful, and I will say the same prayer as you will. But what it is, and in conversations with Dell and with May, it's a 24/7 department that, for a lack of a better term, it hammers the system very heavily, and it's not a bad thing. It's just the nature of
Business.
It's the nature of your business. It's a 24/7 by 365 business. It never shuts down. It gets a lot of traffic through it, which wears on the components and parts of it. So that's why we did the 5-year lease, for which every year we'll take out of seized assets.
I don't think we can.
But anyway, I'm just.
We're violating the rules, and
Well, we'll check it. Yes,
If
but yeah.
it's not a proper appropriation, why are we taking it out of it?
because what I agreed with the town board, I said, because of the extras that we're putting in it, we can put
extras in a sense.
the extras in a sense into it, because if we want to do an upgrade to our server, we could sit there and say, we want to put the switches in. The switches are about $3,000.
Yeah, the
So
switch.
I'm sitting there saying that we're gonna cover that end of it to help for
Yeah.
operational
Okay,
purpose.
then you have to put, yeah,
I mean, some of it may be
Well,
I
like.
understand, but what I'm saying is you have to do it for real, okay? So the switches have to come out of seized asset, and your lease has to come out of
Well, actually,
your.
Well, it's rolled into the same thing, so we're saying that we're gonna pay.
The switches up front through
switches.
seizes, through the
But doing it
season.
every year, it's definitely
Switches
not
are
appropriate
one-fifth
to
of the
take,
cost.
put a server
Right,
in.
it doesn't sound
Which is
good.
one of the
The-
payments.
well, actually,
They could suspend our
Yeah.
ability to use the
Exactly
C's
one
account
Right.
if we violate what it's for.
Right,
So how do we just?
well, so part of it is switches, and also, no, I did look into this, is part of it may be some of the hard drive too, we could take out of C's, because in some of that potentially could be used in the investigation in a little bit, I know, a little, and it's less, it's only about $1,000.
When we
Yeah.
allocate the money for this, how do we make it clear that that's what that portion is going to, just so we can protect ourselves as well?
Well, that'll be, because that's where we gotta transfer the funds, so we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to solemnize this as a town board, because they can't, we can't spend the money.
Okay.
So we will solemnize this as the town board, that this is being used as an upgrade from seized assets
So-
for,
So are we
and then Joe
purchasing-
defined it very well there for
So we're
us.
purchasing the server, and then approving the additional money to have the upgrade for it?
Right.
As two different.
Right.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Basically, yes.
And
Yep.
we're just saying, because of the fact that we don't have the money in the budget,
Okay.
which, might I add, wasn't my doing, because I did put it in the budget. It just wasn't left there, because we knew we had this issue.
No, but it wasn't.
But here's the good
It wasn't,
news.
wait a
You know
second, it
what?
wasn't not left there by
No.
the town board, right?
No,
It
no,
wasn't-
no, 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 no. I said, give it to me. I told you and the commission to give it to me, and I would bring it to the board during the budget process, because
Because it
not
wasn't a
just for the
police department
police
issue.
department, but for the town-wide.
Correct, yep.
Town-wide.
So I took it out under guidelines from the commission, and when it came to the town board or whenever.
Never
it
came
just
to the town board.
That's right.
Never
So-
came.
so-
It never came.
So here's the good news, though. The good news story, too, is one is Joe hopes to get 10 years out of it. I hope we do. I think a reasonable time frame is probably closer to 6 or 7 years. So the nice thing is it's $3,300 a year. So the thought then is, and in talking to May and in talking to Dell, the thought would be to then take this server and move it to a department that doesn't quite hit it as hard, and we can actually start saving money in the town. We have an awful lot of standalone desktops still, even right here. Or if we do move, getting rid of the standalone desktops and moving them to a server, this server would be fine for that. And we probably could get another 5 or 7 years, and then we would upgrade the police server again. So-
Sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead.
It may, the only thing with May that I may emphasize with that plan is, this server, as you said earlier, because it gets the wear and tear, you don't want to wait longer.
Oh, no,
because-
that's the thought process that we were
Yeah.
having, and Susan and I, with us talking to Dell and then talking to May, we don't want to ever be in this situation again, so that's the thought process. So the nice thing is at $3,300, at the end of 5 years, we buy it for $1. So we're gonna buy it for $1, we then own it. We then take a hard look at where we are on that server, and also in 5 years, we'll have a very good look, and we may even be in a different location, this whole place, but we need to start phasing out all these desktops, and we need to start moving our town operations onto a server. May is very confident this server, once it's in an area that's more stable, not saying that you guys are, it's just not being hammered, it's not just constantly being driven 24/7, 365.
24/7, we have
And, right,
10
She
or
says it'll be-
11 laptops that go through from the cars.
just the cars, that's what she
Let
said,
alone
is
the
just,
service.
and also what you ask of it apparently puts a lot of traffic through it, just the requests are very heavy on it. So we can then move this to another department that doesn't need to hit it as hard, and then we look to upgrade the police one again, because as your demands grow and the software grows, apparently your software changes much more frequently too. Just,
Well, it's
The
changed
nature.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the state software is where we're really experiencing the issue. The TRAX program where we have to issue all accidents
Yep.
and tickets, as well as our ability to process and fingerprint and photograph people. That's where you put a lot of the burden.
so I think what it is this board, and we did save, like I said, we're down to 16,000 now, we started at about 20.
30.
Third,
About
well,
27, it's 27,000.
Well, Joe was actually right with the 30, so everyone knows, so to speak, is that, that we are going to get a pretty sizable bill from May. But hopefully we've all learned our lesson, I know I have here, is that if we maintenance it better, and then, when I say maintenance, and we get into a rotation of moving these servers out,
Right.
we'll never have this huge labor bill again that we're now facing from May. So hopefully we can move in, say, 7 years from now. You're getting a new server. This server is now being moved to a department that can use it probably for another 5 years or so. And then you'll be getting a new server again in the police, and we won't ever get in this situation. Because it's been very expensive, and it's unfortunate the way you learn the lesson, but it's...
But didn't Eugene want to start a capital campaign? Hadn't you talked about that?
Well, I talked about it, yes, I did.
Yeah, but you talked about it at the police commission meeting when
Yes,
you're the
I did.
liaison, so why don't you talk about it with the board? So the board knows what you talked about, because we don't know.
At the budget time, I was instructed that it wasn't gonna happen, so, I'm actually, this 5-year plan, I actually, the Justice Court was desperate. Obviously, they can't have this one now, but they were desperate.
Well, they have
Well,
one,
we got a new server.
we just got a new
That was
server.
before it was budgeted for a new server.
Right.
They were desperate.
Yep.
So what I wanted to do was give them theirs and get them upgraded and get the entire town upgraded, because there's little pieces. People they got a new laptop there, but the rest of the department didn't. They got a laptop down in the town clerk's, not a laptop, but a
Desktop.
new
Computer for-
computer,
for-
but not all of them,
Right.
you know? Somebody has a Mac, everybody else has a Dell. I mean, where's the functionality?
You're absolutely
As
correct.
a town.
Nope,
Yeah,
you're absolutely
okay.
correct. Nope, you are absolutely
right.
correct.
So,
So the good news is, so for $3,500 a year.
Yeah, but I really want to understand how you wanted to do this. This $3,500 is coming out of contingency or
No,
the
it's-
police budget?
This year's coming out of
This is
C's,
that.
next year it'll come out of the budget.
Next year he's putting it into the budget.
Okay, so then, this is not your lease payment that's coming out of C's?
Yes.
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 No, okay, Chief, just explain to me that it was connections or something. What was it you called it?
Gee. Switches.
Switches.
Gene, if you look at
You
the
can give her a
invoice,
copy of that. All right.
the switches are a total of $3,333.60
So that's what's
versus
coming
a
in.
yearly payment of $33.49.37.
Give them the mic.
The difference is about $16.
Mike,
Now, where's the switches?
So do you think you want to see this? Did you get this?
I have one.
if you
Okay,
give me
yeah.
a
Two
call.
switches.
Oh,
So there's two on the line item, so if you go across,
Right, where it says switch, extended price 33360.
Yep. And the yearly payment's $33.49.37. Chief, while Gene is looking at that, would you provide me with a copy of whatever you have in writing that defines the parameters of how the seized asset money can be spent?
Yes, didn't I thought I sent that to you guys.
Send it to
Maybe
me.
was the commission.
I think we had
No,
this discussion.
you explained
I don't
it
think it was
earlier
right.
this year.
Well, why don't you, we have a meeting, I mean, right now, we approved all the purchase orders. It's all in the works, it's all happening. There's nothing stopping this from moving forward. We can't do it tonight anyway, like Jeff said. We'll have to do it next Thursday at our board meeting. So in between that time, we can get the definition of the seized assets. We can assess this a little bit better. And then next week, when we allocate the money, we'll have a better handle on what's the right way to do it.
and then next year also, and to your point, Joe, is, and I think, and to what Gene is saying, is we need to get all of our departments thinking about what we just went through. And I used it with Rob earlier, which is, I think we need to do a postmortem with May when we're all done with this and see, you know,
Well, there's
we
actually,
did have the warnings, so I don't want it, please, it's neither one of your, but we did have the warnings and we did not heed them. But I think we learned a valuable lesson here and an expensive one because, you know, it's, what we've spent just in funds for May to help put in a temporary patch, we could have made
This
2
should be
years of lease
something,
payments.
I think, even though we have our own department and, you know, there's different departments in the town, this should be a town-wide program.
right,
You know,
Absolutely.
with police cars, we're on a lease program.
right.
Yeah,
Years
there
back,
should be a
the board
town-wide
wanted us to
computer
go into a
upgrade.
rotation, so we
Absolutely.
don't have that big jump.
Right, there
Nope.
should be consistency, and it would also not hit the taxpayer as
Exactly.
far as
Yep.
when you
Yeah.
have that.
And
Absolutely.
just in relations to when we approve this at our next meeting, so are we gonna do this as two separate?
Let's get the law for the seized asset. Let's assess
Yeah.
the law for the seized asset, and then whatever we have to do, if it's appropriate and we can do it,
Okay.
and take it from seized asset, we'll make the motion appropriately.
Okay.
If it's not appropriate, then we'll take it out of contingency. But whatever we do, we'll do it right.
But if we can get 20% of it paid for with seized assets, that would
Mhm.
certainly be nice.
It doesn't necessarily give you a percentage, you know,
No, I mean,
No,
of the
Jeff is
total
saying-
cost,
Jeff
just
is
like,
saying
so
that
we get,
there's
if
a
we
way that
get
we
1
can
year out of the 5 years,
Mhm.
that would definitely help
Mhm.
us, but,
Uh-huh.
so for next year, when we all sit down, we start discussing actually in a few short months, next
Right.
year's budget, I mean, it'll be certainly a lot nicer to budget 3349 instead of trying to put
Right.
away money, so I
And then
think
there's al-
we're heading the
yeah,
right way.
Yeah, and I think there's also some things, so I mean, maybe we can even do a little subcommittee to start to analyze. I mean, actually, I mean, we should probably, maybe, because Dan, you're on top of this stuff, were you into computers? I know you're into Facebook.
And
I
really
don't
killed
know
it.
if I can really dive into the whole server type.
You know what we'll do, we'll meet with, myself and Jeff will meet with May, you know, we'll have a conversation, because I do know also from the controller's report, there was some security stuff that we're so opposed to also do with
I would think
computers.
about
and-
inviting a couple of people in and have them do an evaluation for
Uh-huh.
free and pitch you.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Then you'd have some pretty stiff
Just to throw
competition.
more out there to you, if you are gonna talk to May, one of the things she is gonna bring up is, as far as hardware goes, is Microsoft is phasing out Windows XP. and all the
XP's out,
security-
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and all of the security patches for it. So that is a big concern of May right now, is because we are operating primarily on Windows XP.
You have XP?
Yes.
Oh.
And that is a security issue.
So what's that going to mean?
You have to buy 7 or 8. What are you gonna be comfortable with?
Well, we gotta find out what the
I'm
software.
asking you.
What's the new server loaded?
What-
8? Have you
That-
tried it?
yes.
You like it?
No, the server
That's a big
doesn't,
morality
the
question.
server doesn't care too much. The problem is,
bubbling.
well, is your software was May's concern too, is we gotta see what some of your software, and some of it is the state software, which one the state software is talking to. So May had mentioned that to me the other day.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of different fingers to
Yeah.
this, and, you know, one of the things, you know, we talk about software
Right.
for our, just our management system, you know, and that's something that we're on hold because although April, I think is when they said it was coming out again, with PD Manager, but the state is also looking at revamping their program for the management system that may be free if, you know, if it gets up and running, but everything is just on hold. But the other thing is that, you know, we're XP right now,
Mhm.
and as Casey was saying, what's gonna happen is the security, nothing's gonna be able to function
Mhm.
any longer, because if you ever see any of the TV commercials that are talking about this, it's like you take your computer and you can throw it in the trash, because there's nothing you can do to even upgrade that system.
Mhm.
So it is a problem, and this is something that's just starting to come out where they're talking about that, but, you know, we have been in the works, we're talking with the commission about upgrading even computers. That's why when I was putting in $100,000 in the budget last year, it was to replace the workstations as well,
Mhm.
or at least most of them, to get us up to where we need to be going into, you know, 2014 and beyond.
Sounds to me like I'm glad we waited.
It's just, yeah, you know.
Graduated?
What,
like
we
that.
wouldn't
Glad
have
you
bought, we
waited.
wouldn't have bought XP last year, or
No,
would
no,
have
it
knew.
would have been the newest system.
Most of
but
our stuff,
we didn't-
Right.
even the in-car computers are coming in now, equipped with, the newest one that we bought is Windows 7.
Okay.
So we're not, you know, some of those we're not, but the workstations themselves have been in place for a number of years. And
Okay.
that's May's concern, is just the security itself. The security patches are no longer going to be provided by Microsoft, so you're susceptible to hackers.
When you say the workstations have been in place, but the security, can you just explain to what that
A
means?
workstation, you meaning your computer that at the desk, your
Right,
desktop computer.
right.
The software is supported by Windows XP, so the potential is there that when there are security patches even on your computer itself, and the way May has at least explained to me, and I'm in no way, shape, or form a computer person, I'm learning, but that the security patches get outdated, and the Microsoft updates.
Okay,
You will not update your security to the
Please.
computer for XPs. So again, hackers will be able to get in, and your
Uh-huh.
security, your computer is at more
Okay.
risk.
You're compromised.
uh-huh.
Mhm.
All right.
But is there a certain point when you know that,
Well, more often than not, Microsoft knows, you know, as May explained to me, when you have a Windows XP, for example, Microsoft knows where it's susceptible, and they create security patches when they find holes. And then periodically through the server itself, the computers receive updates, and you install those updates so that your computer is up to date in regards to that.
mhm,
They are not going to be providing those patches anymore, and that's where you have a problem.
You know when you shut down and it says, don't turn off your
Right.
screen, it's gonna update like
Right.
one of 18?
Right.
Software form.
That's when the security patches come in.
yeah, I just find that, you know, if you have a PD system and you know police departments are dependent on this system, but
Right.
also they could just say, well, we're not gonna do updates until you sort of transition over to some new software that's secure, that Microsoft could just say, well, you're on your own now when you're talking to a police department. I mean, I find
Well,
that,
but
like,
how many
It's all about money.
computers do you have?
We have about 10, 12,
Yeah.
10 or 12 in-house.
So why don't we buy them?
Okay?
what do you mean?
No, I'm serious,
Yeah.
just buy the software and have May install it.
I don't know if the software can be installed in these, is the problem.
That's what May needs to look at. That's one of the
Oh,
issues.
if
May
some
needs
of
to
your,
look at to
if
see.
some of your computers are too
Oh.
low,
To
okay.
take or handle the
Okay,
upgrade.
but some of your, first of all, your laptops, the car laptops would have to be
Jesus
new.
Christ.
Oh, they came with 7.
Well,
Some
you
of
need
them
to
So they're
have.
fine.
bring some experts
Well,
in.
we're in
So
the
it would
process
have
of
to be
having
your
them sit down and give us
in-house.
a presentation,
Okay.
explain
So
it
you're
to
talking
us.
about your in-house, and it would be the older models. But I'm sure you don't have anything with the big back end on it anymore. You probably have all
That's
flat
only,
screen.
that's only the monitor. That doesn't
Right.
matter. It's
What we
the
need to do.
computer
I
itself.
know, I'm saying, you probably don't have any.
No, we don't have any of the
No,
bigs.
because you guys have blown them all up.
They blew
Right.
they blew them all up?
You gonna
Yeah.
quote that?
Well, because they have
It may be good
24/7
to have May come
activity.
in here
Oh.
and answer your questions directly.
I was being
Yeah,
sarcastic,
well, we're
not
gonna,
like you
we're
were
gonna,
shooting.
we're gonna do that.
Okay.
We're gonna
So-
invite a
It's
couple
built.
people.
There
in.
are a number of issues.
The other thing is, it seems like we're gonna have to do it sooner than later and not next year.
Okay.
No, no, but I
But
think,
it's
So
not that
maybe some through
expensive,
July or something.
because you can get like a half a dozen of these licenses. I do it all the time.
Oh, and then use them for the, yeah, I know.
You buy the license,
Yeah, right.
great, so you'd have to buy like 2 dozen licenses for the PD and
Yeah.
get the XPs out.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is talk to May and see if the existing systems, if XP can go and if you can install 7 or 8.
Yeah, but that's if you can install them into those existing computers.
If you
can't-
can install,
And then
if you can't,
then there's
we
a whole
have
bunch
to
more.
do.
Jay is the one to give us that
We'll
answer.
see.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right, okay.
Get all
All right.
frustrated.
Okay, well, long and short is the server crisis could have been
Which
a
part
worse
was-
crisis,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, we were able to handle it expeditiously and take care of it immediately, and basically do it at a minimum cost to the taxpayers of New Paltz, and so that's the good news,
Good.
right?
Yeah, it was pretty well done, everyone.
Next?
Well, Jeff and I got right on it.
There you go.
If, between Jeff and I, we were bouncing back and forth, responding, emailing, whatever, on the phone, and we got it done, so. Okay, so, is there anything else on the table? We pretty much went through everything except for the fact that you have a request to ask us to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel, for a conversation relative to personnel. So,
Or actually, just before that, or if you're not prepared to talk about it, do you guys have any feedback on the regatta? Or is that a longer conversation you want to have, maybe when you do a little more?
It could be a quick thing, just for an update, and if you want any more information.
I mean, one, I just want to say, I think it looked great. I mean,
It
I
ran very
watched it
well.
both from the, I apologize, I missed you in a couple different spots, but
I bounce around.
you did, every time I went there, they go, he just left, so, and I was at the bridge, they're like, you
Bridge.
yes, I was down in a little mud, and your officers did very well playing in the mud down there, and it was bad.
the one thing I just want to ask before you do a little
Yeah.
bit of an update, but the river was pretty high, it was moving pretty fast, and,
Yeah, I do want to thank both the sheriff, well, I'd let you tell, I mean, I
mean,
actually
in terms
watched,
of a safety.
I watched the rescue actually take place, and I was very, very impressed. I believe it was the fire department boat that brought that one that flipped right away in.
The fire department and the
Sheriff were both out there. I couldn't tell whose boat it was, either was on, yeah.
What I can tell you is that it was a concern to us, and Sergeant Lucchese met with the members from there, as well as the dive team from the sheriff's department and the fire department with their rescue boat, and they had the discussion. Because my thought was that it's too high, too fast, I'd probably avoid, do the parade, do everything else but that.
Right,
It seemed like they wanted to still go forward. The answer to that
okay,
was...
so when you say they wanted to go forward, the people who put on the regatta,
And
or?
what I would say, I spoke with Teresa Fall, the chief and I spoke on Friday night. Thursday. I spoke with Chief McGuire and I spoke with Lieutenant Altieri from the Sheriff's Office. We made arrangements to meet Sunday morning to make a decision as to whether or not it would be safe to put the boats in for the participants as well as for the rescuers.
Right, sure.
We met Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. We went down to the boat launch, we checked it out, looked at the flow of the water. Yes, it was moving. It was not a concern for the water rescue teams. They felt that if anybody went in, they were all life vested, they'd be able to effect the rescue and pick anybody up that they could. And they also had spotters up the river as well, calling out any potential debris that may be floating down into the field. They had volunteers from the fire department that were on the banks with throw ropes. Our officers were all equipped with emergency throw ropes as well. So, there were definitely concerns, but we felt we had enough, and it wasn't moving at such a clip that it would, prevent from having the regatta. As far as the regatta leadership, they didn't express a viewpoint either way. They understood, they had no problem with it, and they were going to abide by whatever decision that we made.
They have to abide by whatever decision.
I know,
you
but I just-
ultimately-
I just-
Because ultimately, you guys have the final
Correct.
say,
But there
right?
was
I mean,
never-
it's
there
not
was-
the,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's
No,
like.
and there was no question about
Okay,
it,
good.
and there was no issue.
One of the
Uh-huh.
issues that they did differently also because of the water levels and stuff, usually they put all the boats in the water, then they'll all take off at the same time because it's technically a race.
Right.
This time they were sending a couple at a time. As the homemade rafts were coming down, boats were kind of escorting them along to make sure there was no issues or any problems. The one that did have a little issue at the beginning, with flipped over at the beginning, they took care of it right away. I didn't see it, but again, they were saying...
I watched them actually land it. I followed it. They landed it probably within a couple hundred meters down the shore, brought them in. I couldn't tell whether it was sheriff or fire department, but they stayed there until they crawled up onto the shore and made
So
sure,
it
and then they
worked out.
took
So
off. Yeah,
had
it worked
better
out great.
control that way with just a couple at a time, and they were able to...
I couldn't tell whose boat it was.
Okay.
It
It flipped.
So, I mean,
Bigger.
there were changes to it because of the water and whatever, which is okay, but, I mean, you did, because of the situation, you
we monitored it.
You monitored it and you know,
Some
you were
adjustments.
fluid with this.
Yes, we were. As far as the crowd went, I think, was very good. I think it was better this year than in the past, because people always want to cross the street whenever they want to. They were more obedient this year, with, you know, following the lead of saying, all right, cars are going now, pedestrians wait, now pedestrians go, and it worked out pretty well. Because there was a little hesitation in the boats being sent up the river. At one point, they thought it was over, and people started clearing the bridge, and I thought it was clearing the bridge. I said, no, they're clearing the bridge, but they said, nope, there's more boats coming, so then they started closing before the fire trucks pulled away, and a few people came back, but most of them, you know, saw enough anyway. You know,
Now,
so-
I was approached when I got there later in the afternoon, because I had something I had to be at earlier, but that it was going to be suggested by the police and the fire to close the bridge for 3 hours next year.
No, what was asked of me was, would the police department or the fire department, or excuse me, would the police department have a problem with us closing the bridge? And I said to that individual, you need to discuss that with the town board and the village board. That is beyond our scope and our purview.
But I will say now that that is not my recommendation
Okay.
whatsoever.
Okay.
Although it slows traffic tremendously to go with one lane, and we do close the bridge down for a period of time during the parade itself. But as soon as we can open that up to one lane of traffic and we take turns, yeah, it's slow moving, but we get them through. If you were to stop it totally for 3 hours, it would be a disaster.
Okay.
Okay.
So no, that's not my recommendation.
So that's not the recommendation of the, not the recommendation of the police department.
And I did
can't
say-
believe everything you read in the newspaper.
I don't believe, it had nothing to do with that. I showed up, and as soon as I showed up, I was approached by saying that the police and fire department said, we need to talk to you about closing down the bridge, you know, for 3 hours. And I said, well, you can talk to me about the police department, but you need to talk to the village board about the fire department, because we don't have jurisdiction over the fire department. And they said, well, we want to get it started for next year. And I said, okay. So I'm asking the question, because and I'm getting an answer. That's a little contradictory to what I was originally told, but it's still,
Once that
but the
traffic
conversation,
circle is put
but the
in.
conversation, the conversation did happen.
Now, what I was
The
wondering
conversation
though
did happen,
is,
so-
just because I didn't have that conversation, so I don't know that, but just, I have a very good view of the intersection, and we were very busy, so we appreciate what it does for our downtown businesses. One, it did help to have a 6'6" police officer in that intersection. Putting the tallest officer there was absolutely a great tactical decision, whoever made that, so let's try to do that again next year. But I do think,
This is self-serving.
yeah. We can't require it, but it's a good idea. And I was just wondering, just watching the traffic, there seems to be, the biggest traffic problem seems to be when cars are coming into the intersection from the north and south. And I wonder if there's a discussion worth having on that, and I don't want to have it now, if that would help kind of keep the traffic going then east and west.
You know,
Because occasionally cars, like, they kind of didn't know what to do, and the fire truck has the one lane, so they would pull out, and you know what I mean? It just seemed a little, so I don't want to have the discussion. I mean, it's something you got to talk about, I think, but,
you know, it's more, you know, from Huguenot Street.
Yeah.
It adds a little bit more, but honestly,
And I'm good with your
it
guys'
doesn't add that
recommendation.
much to
Okay.
it. As we do a break for pedestrians to cross, we let them flow out, you know, and again, everything is a timing thing based on the flow, the amount of people. But if you were to have to block that road and put, you know, that's gonna cause more people going around like this on the main street. At least you get some people that are going west, they have an out.
Okay.
You know, so I wouldn't probably change that at this point.
I'm good. No, if you guys are good, whatever.
You know, it seems to work. It's slow moving, but it's safe, and that's the biggest thing.
Good job.
As long as
Good.
it's safe,
No,
so
it's-
great.
no.
Okay, so does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask?
Motion to go into executive session
Second.
to discuss, for personnel issues?
It will not take any action on
I do not know what we're being asked to do, so I guess we will not be taking any action.
No.
Okay, so therefore, we are,
Do you have a town board meeting when?
we have next Thursday.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do an action that night if.
Okay, okay. So, timeout, we didn't vote yet, guys, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried.
that. I
So,
think Gene was a no.
Aye.
so, we don't really actually, since we're not gonna take any action,
Thank you.
and then what we could do is also, I could just email you, Becky, tomorrow and just tell you who, you know, what time we closed and whatever. Okay, so this way you can go. Okay?
So what happens is.
And, Depends on if you want to go home and see your children, or you want to stay here and...
You go, boy, these crazy people doing this.
I don't think there'll be anything.
Oh, quick update, guys. I went.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Al Marks.
Oh, yeah?
I went very, very